Reloading logbooks right now on Firearms and Reloading. Okay folks, so I want to talk about another sort of boring side to reloading today, and that's the reloading logbook. Now, as you can see on the screen, I'm using Microsoft Excel. I started with the traditional logbook that's handwritten. I had like an A4, school book almost, and I ruled up all the grid in it and started filling it out. What I quickly discovered is that it became really unorganized. So if I wanted to add an extra bit of information later on, I didn't have any room left on the page. The beauty of doing it on a spreadsheet like this is if I wanted to add another little bit of information here between the, say, the J and the K column, right click, insert, oh look at that, I have a new column. Okay, so now I can add some more information to my logbook. I'll just go and get rid of that. The other really cool thing is that I've got a workbook for each of the rifles I shoot. So just for example, down here I've got 308 Mossberg. That happens to be my dad's hunting rifle. And I got 308 Tikka, right? So it's just a matter of flicking it over. It's all nicely organized and there's no more scribbled out marks and things like that. So I just want to show you how I set it up, and hopefully this helps you organize your reloading information. Some people look at reloading logbooks and they think, oh yeah, it's not so important, I've got my load, I just load the ammo and away I go. It's important just to record keep. Particularly in load development, you're trying to keep track of a load that shoots really well and you want to be able to replicate it later on. The more information you can drop down, the better. You can always come back to it another day and replicate those results. So I've got it all labeled out. Obviously the date is probably the most important column, and then the quantity of rounds I've loaded up. So as you can see in the development here, I was only loading 3 rounds per charge weight. Now you'll notice here these 2 columns with color. So what I do is I take a marker pen or a Sharpie and I just do a ring around the primer in different colors. So if for any reason my ammo box gets tipped out or I get sidetracked, I can see exactly what the loads are in the cases. And as a side note too, I also print off after I've loaded that certain section. So after this reloading session, I'd select all that and just print it off. So then I've got the hard copy in the ammo box as well as this sitting on my computer. So obviously then the powder that I'm using, so I'm using Reloader 15, and then the charge weights obviously, the case overall length, the particular bullet I'm using, which is the Hornady SST, that actually has a cantilever, so it kind of sets the case overall length for you. The cases, we're using ADI, Australian Defence Industry brass. It happens to be a really readily available brass here in New Zealand. It comes out of Australia obviously, and it is such high quality brass. It's got a very thick case wall, so you will lose a little bit of capacity, but I've been very impressed with the quality of the brass overall. Now another important one here, keeping track of how many times that brass has been fired. This is very important. This gives you an understanding of when that brass is ready to be retired. So keeping track of that is very important. Obviously the primer, I prefer the Federal match primers, haven't let me down yet. So like I alluded to earlier, I'm using the Hornady SST boat tail, and it happens to be a 165 grain projectile. Now I've added the base to ogive measurement in here as a category. I haven't actually bothered measuring it yet. Because it's a hunting rifle, I don't really want to be jamming them up in the lands, and it is an internal box magazine, and obviously the overall length is quite limited in there, so I'm just sticking to the case overall length. On a target rifle, I might actually use this category. So the other thing too with this spreadsheet, say you're not going to use this particular category, you can right click up here and select hide. Gets rid of that information off the screen, you're not going to use it, and you can carry on. So method. So this is how I've done the charge weights. So I've used the RCBS charge master, which you've probably seen on my workbench before. If it's something that I might end up loading progressively, this may change. I may do my load development with the charge master, but then I might be using, you know, the auto droppers or the auto disc powder measures later on. So I'm just keeping track of what method I've used. Now, the rest of this information here is usually post firing, of course. So I've measured the group sizes on this. Let's just scroll over here a second. So I've measured the group sizes of each of those 3-shot groups, so that gave me a pretty good indication as to what those loads were doing. Once I got 2 loads that were, you know, close to each other and producing pretty good results, I then came over and reloaded them again. So I reloaded 5 of each and did a test with the chronograph to confirm that it wasn't just grouping nicely at 100, it was actually a consistent load. So you'll also note here, I've got in the notes here, pulled. So this is the other advantage of colouring your primers. So, or even just colouring the case, you can just draw a ring around the case or even write the charge weight on the side of the brass. That marker pen will come off once you tumble that brass. So the black load, which happened to be the highest charge, when I got to firing that red load, I looked at the primers and went, oh, that primer's starting to flatten out a little bit. So I never ended up firing the 41.7. So you'll see over here in the notes, obviously there's no group size for it. And in the notes, I've actually pulled those. So got the old inertia hammer out, pulled the projectiles out, and decided not to test that load. Now, you'll also notice over here, mid OBT. So that's optimum barrel time. I'll do a video on that later. That's how I roughly get my charge weights when I'm starting out doing a load development. It's quite a little in-depth process, but once you've mastered it, it can save you a whole lot of time. So like I said, second loading, I've come back here and I've done up 2 loads, 2 different loads. They're actually only 0.1 of a grain apart. That's the beauty of the charge master, it is so accurate. And I've retested them over the chronograph. Now as you can see, I've got the muzzle velocity, so this is the average muzzle velocity here, minimum, maximum, standard deviation, and extreme spread. So what I ended up landing on is this load here. Obviously for a hunting rifle, a standard deviation of 5 feet per second is fantastic. I'm more than happy with that. In the end, I ended up choosing that over the other load, even though it had a lower extreme spread, its standard deviation was better. And then obviously now I've got the final load here, and he went on a hunting trip in August, so he only wanted me to load up 15 rounds for him. So that's how I do my reloading log. Now this is a hunting rifle, so I'm going to take you over to my 223 Tikka, which is pretty much a range rifle. So this is a little bit different. I've got more information in here, so that base to ogive measurement, I've got that in there. So I've also got the jump, so that's obviously the jump between the bullet ogive and the start of the rifling. That may be way in depth unless you're reloading for precision or accuracy. Obviously I've got a crimp category here too. Because it's a range rifle, I don't intend on taking it out in the field. I have no intention of crimping those loads. To be honest, I'm kind of chasing my tail with this rifle because it seems to shoot most things pretty well. I have had a few off days in here. You can see that there's groups larger than 1 MOA here, but they're coming in very small for the most part of it. So you can see I'm using a Hornady boat tail hollow point, 75 grain. It is a fast twist barrel, that's why I've chosen that heavy projectile. Once again, my favorite powder, Reloader 15. And yeah, this is a more advanced situation. I haven't got around to chronographing this rifle yet. I'm going to have to do that next because I'm not really getting consistent information out of just shooting group sizes. I'm going to have to find a load that has a low standard deviation and a low extreme spread, and then proceed from there. From there as well, I may play around with the jump or the base to ogive length. It's the same thing, it's just 2 different ways of measuring it. and I might be able to dial that in and get a really consistent extreme spread and standard deviation, but also getting a really good group size at 100. So all of the MOA groups are at 100 meters. So this is how I do my reloading log, guys. Not everyone, I appreciate, has the IT skills to do something like this. I'm not an expert at Excel by any means. Now, you don't actually have to do this on a computer either. With your Apple devices, your iPads, you get, what do they call it? They call it Numbers. Numbers comes with that. There's also Google free online has something called Sheets, I think. So there's multiple spreadsheet softwares out there. I find this is really easy too, because I have an old computer flat screen mounted up next to my reloading bench, and what I can do is I can put this information up on my reloading bench on that screen while I'm reloading, so it's right there in front of me. I mean, at the end of the day too, I could just print out, say, you know, obviously this has already been loaded, but if I just wanted to print this out and just have it sitting on the workbench too. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. I release new videos every Friday, so hit that notifications bell so you don't miss out on anything. See you in the next one.